Hey guys, Mrs. Tester here. Hope you're doing well. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you today, but I do want to go over last night's homework, which was barn burning. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit more about A Rose for Emily because we were kind of all over the place yesterday during class. So I just wanted to wrap it up so we felt really good moving forward. So you want to go ahead and get out your Rose for Emily text so that way you could write some of these things on it. So again, hopefully you wrote down the quote that Paris had put on the board. I'm going to repeat it here for you. It was a Benjamin Franklin quote. In this world, nothing could be said for certain except death and taxes. Again, it's nothing can be said for certain except death and taxes. So it's really important here that we make the connection truly. Why was this quote slapped up on the board? Well, again, we need to talk about these two overarching themes. And hopefully y'all did some research and found this out on your own. But there is this true tradition of, this theme of tradition versus change. So you want to be sure you have that down somewhere on your paper, this theme of tradition versus change. So the significance here is that the entire time we have truly, it seems that Miss Emily has really encapsulated herself in the past, right? Not leaving her house, not really being a part of society, not paying taxes, all of these changes and all of these things that are required of her. She actually tries to stop change from happening literally with her, this macabre bridal chamber that she creates, right, with Homer, which ends up being at the cost of a human life, her trying to stop the change and for her to be with him forever, or for him to be with her forever, excuse me. So again, that is a very powerful theme that we have going on. And then also the theme of the power of death. Miss Emily, she actually denies death, right? When her father passes away, the body's rotting. She won't admit to the fact that, yes, he has died. Let's take his body away. And then, of course, the way she kind of, again, encapsulates Homer's body in that room all of those years and sleeps next to it and all of those things. Okay. So going off of, I mentioned a word here, macabre, macabre, people pronounce it differently, but it was actually a vocab word. If you noticed on your sheet, it kind of defined little words at the bottom of each page. If you flip to page 7, it's actually defined there. Macabre is having death as a subject, morbid, dwelling on the gruesome. So you're going to see this word again. So you want to be sure that you really start relating this to the Southern Gothic. And of course, it falls right in line with all of the different things like the grotesque that we've been discussing. So again, I wanted to recap the two themes here being tradition versus change and the power of death. That Benjamin Franklin quote, right? Nothing certain but taxes and death. So you're always going to have to pay your taxes, and death's always going to come for us. And then, of course, we have that actual tax issue between Colonel Sartoris and Miss Emily that ties in that quote even better. And then the definition of macabre, macabre, whatever you choose there. Okay. All right, so once you have all of that kind of written down, let's transition to barn burning. So you should have a hard copy of the response and analysis of barn burning in front of you, but I want to go through actually the plot of what happens first, okay? So again, I mean, this is pretty interesting with William Faulkner, what he's doing here. For A Rose for Emily, we did an entire sheet on Faulkner's style, right? When it came to diction and syntax and imagery. That was important to set you up for this story as well. And then, of course, our novel that we're going to be starting soon, As I Lay Dying. So there's a few things I did want to kind of mention here that you probably noticed. First of all, this was published in 1939. I think it was published in Harper's Magazine. So again, it's good to know the dates. But this story takes place after the Civil War. So again, he's kind of writing about the South right after the Civil War, which was a time period that he covered often. So if you noticed, we have the main character here, Colonel, we have the little boy, right? Colonel Sartoris. And it's probably familiar again to you because we had a Colonel Sartoris in A Rose for Emily. So you could maybe assume, is this Colonel Sartoris as a young boy? I don't know, that might be a stretch, but we do know that Faulkner loved to refer to Colonel Sartoris in a lot of his works, and he even published a novel called Sartoris, and that was in 1929, which came before this short story. And this novel, just to have a little facts about it, it was about the decay of the aristocrats in the South after the Civil War. So again, he loves to write about this time period. He loves to write about class and class systems and breaking down those barriers. So Sardi Snopes, right? He's the 10-year-old. He's really our true protagonist throughout the story that we read about. And we'll go into his father and all of that stuff. So guys, I'm going to try to share screen with you here, just the questions. I don't actually have the answers up here for you, but while I go through each answer, I'm going to speak it aloud. If you could be writing, just like we would if I was with you live in class. So number one here, it asks us, how would you describe Faulkner's style? Can you identify the point of view used in the story? Why are some sentences italicized? How does the style contribute to the meaning of the story? So again, we're still kind of obsessed on Faulkner's style of writing because it's different than anything we've seen before. So if you notice, he truly did have these long looping sentences throughout. And again, we talked about stream of consciousness. That's something I would definitely write. Those long looping sentences that probably gave you a headache and probably hindered your understanding of the story as well is his style of writing. He's doing this purposefully. And again, stream of consciousness, stream of thought is what he writes from. If you notice too, it can be a bit confusing because he goes into all the different sensory impressions, not just observations, but smell, taste, feelings, emotions. He's describing all of those things, okay? And again, the reason why it makes it hard to understand and why Faulkner chooses to write in this way is it's evident that this suggests that human understanding and perception are unstable and always changing. So the way we think about something, I mean, it's always going to change. It's not linear either. So that's, again, why it makes it a bit difficult to understand the story. Hopefully you picked up on the italicized sentences and lines are Sardi's thoughts. Okay, so again, our 10-year-old protagonist throughout the story, what he truly thinks. And oftentimes it's directly related to Abner, his father. Okay, so let's get into the kind of chain of events now that we tackled style. So it opens, right, and it seems that Sardi and his dad, again, I'm not on this sheet anymore. We're just discussing plot before we move on to make sure we understand. So Sardi and his dad are in like a general store, which also doubles as a courtroom. And it seems that his father, Abner, is on trial for burning a man named Mr. Harris's barn. And it's important to know that Abner is a tenant farmer. And what is a tenant farmer? It's someone who actually uses other people's land to grow their crops. It's different than a sharecropper because at least tenant farmers have their own tools where sharecroppers would have to loan tools from that. So he hops from farm to farm, lives off of these farms, works off of these farms, and has to pay rent just like you would for a home. But he's paying rent for the land him and his family are living on and also working on. So it seems that he was working at Mr. Harrison's farm, and there is a barn that is burned down, and he's been accused of doing it. And so basically this trial goes on, and this trial, right? And there's not enough evidence, so he ends up getting away with it. But what the judge says is, you know, he basically knows that he did it, but there's not hard proof, no evidence. And so he says, you know, just get out of here. I'm not going to press you with anything, but you need to leave, you know, this part of the country. You need to just, you know, get out of my county, at least move on. So we have Sardi's thoughts through all of this. So again, we have Abner Snopes, right, who is the father who's on trial. We have Sardi who's sitting and watching the trial happen because he was going to testify. But then he kind of the Mr. Harris ends up not wanting him to testify because he knows that he'll lie for his father, when Sardi knows that it's his dad who's burned down the barn. Sardi also has a brother that's with him. There are two sisters waiting in the wagon, his mother Lenny, and then his mother's sister, which would be his aunt. So they're all traveling and living together, clearly. And so after he is absolved of his crime, right, and just told to get out of town, Abner takes his family in the wagon and they go to another plantation, another farm, the Despain farm. Okay. So what ends up happening there is he's allowed in the house, but what he makes sure to do before Abner steps into the home, he steps in horse manure and traces it all over the white rug inside. And again, we have the black servant that answers the door. And this is through a lot of Faulkner's novels, a lot of his short stories we've read as well. Of course, the N word being used, which again, we've discussed, and these house workers and also on the farm, African Americans being present in the stories. Usually they're not given a name. And again, we can talk about that being the underlying sense of racism. Is Abner himself racist? I don't know if we can prove that or not. He does mention that the home was built by slaves. So it was kind of in a condoning way that he does say that. So interesting enough. All right, so he goes in, he traces the poop all over the rug, and then when the master of the house, Mr. Despain, comes home, he ends up sending the rug over to the part of his land that Snopes are residing on and working on, and says, you have to clean this, and you have to make it right. So Abner has Sardi's two sisters try to clean it. They return it. It ends up more damaged than it was before. Despain says, okay, now you owe me 20 bushels, which would have taken a significant amount of time to earn. He claims that the rug is worth $100, which would have been pretty pricey. So Abner doesn't agree with that, and he takes him to court and says, this is way too much. There's no way the rug is worth that. And the judge lessens the amount of bushels, I believe. But at that point, Abner has already made up his mind to burn this guy's barn as well. Sardi knows this. Sardi's observing. We have his thought process through all of this. And he wants to warn someone or try to stop his dad from doing it. Abner actually has Lenny hold Sardi down while he and the other son go to light the barn on fire. And before he has the opportunity to do it, Sardi escapes from Lenny's arms and runs up to the Despain house and is just screaming, barn, 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 and then takes off for the hills. While he's running, he does hear gunshots. So Despain had taken off on his horse to see what was happening. And again, what can we assume happened there? Okay, so that covers the plot of the story. So hopefully that cleared up any questions that you had about the actual rundown of the story. Okay, so let's get to this second question. Describe Sardi's reaction to the sight of Major Despain's house. What does it represent to him? So what's important here, guys, is that they've just left the courthouse, right? The general store with the issue of burning Mr. Harris's barn. Then they go to the next plot of land that they're going to live off of and rent and work on, which is the Despain house. They roll up to the Despain house, and basically these are direct quotes from page 5. Sardi says, it's as big as a courthouse. So again, we think about the symbolism of court and justice and all of these things that his father hasn't had to be held accountable for. So he says it's as big as a courthouse is the way he describes it. And he goes on to say that they're going to be safe from him. So he sees the splendor of the home, and he talks about how there's a peace and dignity that the home is exuding that he notices. And he believes that this peace and dignity will last longer and will save these people from whatever minute destruction his dad is going to try to place on them. It's clear that Sardi recognizes, even at 10 years old, that his father has an agenda when it comes to the class system, right? When it comes to people who are wealthier than him, that he does unjust actions like burning people's property out of this anger and out of this whatever it is in his past, which we're about to talk about. So again, it represents this idea of peace and dignity, of justice. It's big, it's grand, like a courthouse. It's too big to be struck down by a minor flame, he even talks about. All right. Number 3, discuss the character of Abner. How does he view the world around him? How does he treat his family? What did his activities during the war reveal about him? Okay, so guys, obviously he's abusive, right? He controls his family with physical and psychological violence. We know that he was a mercenary in the Civil War, and this is important because mercenaries were people who fought for money instead of patriotism. So he did fight in the Civil War, but only because he got paid, and he actually committed a lot of different crimes. So he would make money from stealing horses and selling them to the highest bidder, and that's actually why he limps around, because he was shot by a Confederate soldier. So a Confederate soldier actually shoots him for this crime, and that's probably why he's limping around. Since the war, he's been kind of living on the outskirts of town, bopping around from farm to farm with his family. He lives on the fringes of society. There's no law but his own. This idea of a rebel without a cause. It's ironic because he had to be paid to fight in the Civil War, but he seems to be at war with himself and at war with the class system in America at this time. He holds this huge resentment for people who have more than him just because of what they were born into. So again, he's fighting a class war here. This is interesting here at the end of number 3. What positive qualities, if any, does he possess? I think we get the positivity from the thoughts of Sardi, okay? So Sardi's thoughts really help transform Abner from this like one-dimensional bad guy, like bad dad, into a more three-dimensional character that at times he really has empathy for. And Sardi really does believe in that bravery. And again, that's probably misplaced because he's clouded by the fact this is his father. So again, he kind of becomes more complex and mysterious than he should really be given credit for. Okay. All right, let's move on to number 4. Identify and discuss one symbol in the story. Oh, it looks like I spelled quotation wrong here. There we go. You must cite one quotation. It's okay if y'all don't want to cite it. The one I obviously want to talk about is fire. Okay, so fire really kind of symbolizes how Abner, everywhere he goes, he's desperately trying to ignite some type of power. He feels powerless because of the class that he's born into, okay? So him igniting these fires is a bit of retribution, okay? His way of avenging the class system through destruction of upper class property. So again, this inherent powerlessness that comes with the class he was born into, and him trying to ignite and spark power through fire and destruction. Okay, so number 5 asks us to recount the sequence of events that unfold after Sardi warns Major Despain. So we've already gone through the sequence of events up until this. So basically, we know that Abner is getting ready to set the Despain barn on fire right after he leaves the courthouse, or again, the little general store, where he's told he will still have to pay, maybe not as much as what Despain said the rug was worth, but he is going to still have to pay. He's not okay with that. So he comes home and he creates the plan. And the mother and the sister and Sardi, I mean, they all know, right? The brother too, that this is what he's going to do. The mother's like, no, Lenny's like, no, like, don't do this, Abner. But he's got his mind made up. So Sardi is not about it this time. He's telling his dad, no, don't do it. You don't have to do it this way. And so Abner asks Lenny, his mother, to hold him so that way he can't escape while they burn the barn. We know that he is able to escape. Sardi runs into the main house, the Despain house, and warns the master of the house, Mr. Despain, all he can say is barn, 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 right? And then Despain gets on his horse, and we just have Sardi's perspective where he's running away and hears gunshots. I think it is unclear, unresolved if Abner is shot or not, if the brother is shot or not, what happens to the family after this. I don't know. Do you want to think that finally justice is served to Abner, and is that justice death? That's kind of up for you to decide. And again, it's that idea of Faulkner's style of writing, the stream of consciousness, leaving things unresolved on purpose for the reader, because that's the way life is. That's the way thoughts are. They're unresolved, right? So yeah, for number 5 there, that truly is what's unclear, unresolved, is the ending of this, and what's going to happen to Sardi as he goes into the woods. What will become of him? Okay. Number 6, what is the significance of the father's dirtying of Major Despain's rug? What does this specific event suggest about class relations? So this could have been a symbol you did too, but I mean, literally him stepping in poop and tracing it all over the white rug. He is now, it's shifted, right? So he used to, his method was always burning barns or doing something outside of the home. This is the first time he's able to get inside of the home and actually cause destruction there as well. It's a deeper violation that he's doing inside of the home. So again, it's a new method of operating, a new plan of attack, to just, if he can even ruin something small like a rug, that will be enough to get his retribution for being lower class. Okay, number 7, this is one I want y'all to answer and really dig in and think about. If Sardi grew up around so much violence as evidenced in the story, where did he learn the ability to fight for honor and justice? So for this question, again, y'all are going to do it on your own. I want you to really think about the idea of nature versus nurture. So maybe look up that concept and figure out on your own what you think is the idea here. Okay, so you're going to want to do number 7 whenever I'm finished talking on your own. Okay, number 8 is also another question I want you to explore. This is an opinion. Is the family free at the end if Abner has died? Will they be free? Again, you have to think about the fact that now they're really powerless, right? Because the only person in their family who is making the money and leading them could be dead. Does his dying really affect the class system? All of these things that he's doing to try to destroy it, is it in vain? That's up to you to decide. So again, number 8 is one for you to do on your own once we finish up here. Number 9, why does Sardi describe the smell of food continuously? So again, I talked about that stream of consciousness also deals with smell, taste, touch, all of the senses there. It shows us that he's hungry, y'all. He's really hungry. He's not living a good life. He's abused in many ways, and one of those ways is neglect and hunger and all of these different things. And again, that overarching theme of poverty in this lower class America. Okay, number 10, again, one I want you to do on your own. Who is the central character in the story? Defend your choice. So who do you think is the protagonist and why? Be sure you give some details there explaining why. Okay. For number 11, this last question here, you are going to go in and work on it a bit on your own, but I do want to help you out some. So who or what is barn burning about? So this is like a theme question, basically. And these are the 2 themes that I think are the most important throughout this. Loyalty to family versus loyalty to the law. Okay, so blood versus justice. That's a huge theme throughout this. So if you choose that one as the most important, break it down, explain what it means, and be sure you explain how the plot relates to that theme of loyalty to family versus loyalty to the law. And then the second theme here is the search for peace. This idea that that's all Sardi really wants is peace, and that's what he's trying to find. And that question number 7 asks you that, right? Are they free? Have they found peace? So if you choose that theme, you're going to want to describe that as well. obviously to the theme of society and the class system there that I've kind of discussed throughout this. Okay, so guys, again, we're about to finish up here. I'm sorry, that was number 8. You're going to want to be sure you do number 8 on your own, number 10 on your own, and figure out how one of those themes I named for number 11 really applies to the story. Okay? All right, guys, that's all I got for you for barn burning. Hopefully that really helped kind of get down to the understanding. I know Faulkner can be difficult with his style, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't appreciate him for it. So over the long weekend, guys, you are going to be reading A Good Man is Hard to Find, Flannery O'Connor. She's one of my favorite authors. You're going to love it. I promise. It's a great one. And then I'm going to ask you to also do the response and analysis questions. So no paragraph over the weekend. You're just reading and answering the R&A questions. All right, guys, that is all I have. Again, I hope you have a wonderful holiday weekend, and I will see y'all on Tuesday.